I'll never forget Barack Obama being elected and being so excited and like there's hope and change in the world. And then the disillusionment that came through the end of that and the beginning of the Trump years. And also then coming to learn like, all right, Obama was out here drone striking children at weddings. You know what I mean? It's not just that Trump is bad and what they're doing is awful and they're ushering in fascism, which is all true.
Absolutely.
It's also this recognition of we're not just grieving the loss of the future we thought we had. We're grieving the loss of the past. We're realizing, at least a lot of people, I think like you and me, people who've moved a little bit further left, are realizing the past that we thought the world was like, it was never really like that. We believed in a fairy tale. You know what I mean?
It almost mirrors like the deconstruction or evolution in our religious journeys. Is like there's a point where we came to realize like actually this idea of this faith is not what I thought it was. And so I have to both rethink where I'm going and also reassess where I've been and trying to make meaning out of what my past experiences were.
Yes, exactly right. Hey, welcome back to Ask the Next Question. I'm Colton.
I'm Joshua.
And listen, it's been a crazy week for us, start to the new year. We want to give you guys a huge thanks. We recently crossed over a huge milestone of 1,000 subscribers. I think we're up to what now? 1,200 subscribers, and way more views in the last like couple of weeks than we had in the months and months and months leading up to this. So we really appreciate you guys for rocking with the show. Now, it's not just been crazy good. There's been a lot of crazy bad shit going on.
Absolutely.
And we could talk about that for days. And one of the things that we want to do here is we're not really a news show, but we do want to provide, valuable commentary, right? The reason I want to do a podcast with you, bro, is I always felt like we would have these one-on-one conversations. And I always felt like I was getting a fresh take, right? Or something that helped me see it just a little bit differently.
And it's making sense of what's going on.
Exactly. And we do that, well together. And so we want to invite you guys into that conversation with us. And so we have some videos that we want to watch and react to rather than just telling you what's happening in the news. You probably already know. But there's a lot of creators out there who are making really good points. But sometimes I'm watching, I'm like, sure. Or what about, but what do you mean? And maybe you can help me understand what they meant better. And so what do we got up first?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few videos that we're going to talk about, and even to your point, I think a lot of times like you'll send a video to somebody and they'll like react to it. So this kind of think about this as like a meta version of that. Like you send a video to your friend and maybe you text a little bit about it, but you not as often do you get to have like a full-fledged conversation. So you guys are kind of getting invited into our conversation around both things that are happening and videos that we're watching and reacting to. So the first one I will try to put the creator's name in the comments. I've seen him a few times on TikTok.
Yeah, I see this dude all the time, and I feel like I know him, and I know I don't.
Which means he's probably doing a good job.
It's like, bro, he's like he's like kind of like an asshole, but incredibly likable. I don't know what it is. I'm like, this dude strikes like a strange balance of like, maybe I don't know, like, because I always usually agree with him, but I'm like, people that don't agree with him, that he still seems like they must like him. If
you listen to like the first 5 to 10 seconds of his videos, you might be rubbed the wrong way. But from my experience, if you keep listening, usually I'm like, I agree with this take.
And so in this video, basically he's kind of breaking down, talking a little bit about the emotional state that we're all experiencing right now. How, for many of us, it feels like we definitely are losing something.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of people out there that are like, no, like, the country was already like this for us. And so how do you emotionally process that? And even for some of us who maybe recognize that, we still feel like we're grieving the loss of some. So he has some pretty valuable insight. Let's get into check it out.
If you're a person who cares about the world and the people in it, and you're not a little bit afraid right now, I would think that there is something wrong with you. Because the people that are going to be living with the consequences of this for the rest of their lives, the people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, this is not the world that we were raised to expect or the one that we grew up in. And the truth is, those worlds were not safe for everyone, were not good for everyone, but there was a sense of stability in knowing what to expect from them. And now we don't know what to expect because suddenly everything's on the table. All the progress we made is being erased, right along with the expectation that we would ever build on it. And there is a name for the sensation that you're feeling right now. It's called grief. I have a friend on this app, a political philosopher, who describes it very well. Her name is Ray, and you should go follow her. Because whether you realize it or not right now, you are grieving the loss of safety that the old world stability provided. And if you're a person who cares, especially a leftist, it is an odd sensation. Because you don't miss the old world. It had all the same cruelties this one does, they just weren't as explicit. Hidden by boring politicians who could cover them up with laws, lies, and a little bit of education that taught you to handle your complaints about the system the right way, their way, through elections, lawsuits, and lobbying, as long as you could afford them. And now that they've broken the contract that way provided, you're not looking to hold them to it. Because like losing an abusive parent, you might grieve the loss, but you bury them deep in the ground and you put a rock on top. Because they taught you the feeling of stability may bring only the illusion of safety. So my advice is that you feel that feeling, the sadness of losing something you won't miss, so that you can start focusing on a world with stability and safety. One that if you lost it, you would miss.
Dude, that is so good.
Yeah.
What stands out to you initially?
I mean, there's so many thoughts because I've been trying to figure out on an emotional level how to deal with everything that's going on and to actually sit and feel and experience that feeling of grief. Because I've heard a few other creators talk about that we're going through a period of, or we have the opportunity to grieve the old world, and even talking about this in therapy. So I'm trying to figure out, just on a personal and emotional level, how do I engage with that feeling? Because part of the pull, and we've talked about this in past episodes, is just to stay up to date with everything that's happening. And there's too many things that are happening.
That's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job and a half. And so like, there's some part of me that already knows what's happening and knows where this is going. And so the true work is like, all right, how do I reset my nervous system, fully like experience those feelings that he's talking about, that whatever expectation I had about what the next 10, 15, 20 years were going to look like, whatever idea that we were taught as kids, you know, you grow up, you have a kid, you have a white picket fence. I never really wanted those things to begin with, but just this, though, underneath those things is the assumption that the world is stable enough for you to kind of go through a predictable path, and then maybe deviate if you wish. But when there's so much chaos and uncertainty, it's hard to even think about what's coming in the future. But the point that he was really kind of calling us to is like, we should also recognize that the world of stability that we were taught was ultimately not that stable after all. And it wasn't a world where there was justice, there was peace, there was
equity. Not a safe world.
It wasn't a safe world for a lot of people, and it truly wasn't even a safe world for us. Because like, even if you rewind 10 years, like if you happen to be unlucky and got like a chronic illness, you could be unhoused, you could be bankrupt. So it's just the elevation and the escalation of an instability that was kind of already existing in an explosion. I think we'll kind of talk about this throughout the episode, that what's happening now isn't necessarily something brand new, but it's an escalation and an exposure of things that have been kind of going on for a long time.
I think he named something really important that you hit on here as well, which is and a cognitive dissonance that I've been dealing with, because I do feel grief for the loss of a perceived world or reality that I thought I had. Like when, you know, I'll never forget Barack Obama being elected and being so excited and like there's hope and change in the world. And then the disillusionment that came through the end of that and the beginning of the Trump years. And also then coming to learn like, all right, Obama was out here drone striking children at weddings. You know what I mean? And what I mean is like, it's not just that Trump is bad and what they're doing is awful and they're ushering in fascism, which is all true.
Absolutely.
It's also this recognition of we're not just grieving the loss of the future we thought we had. We're grieving the loss of the past. We're realizing, at least a lot of people, I think like you and me, people who've moved a little bit further left, are realizing the past that we thought the world was like, it was never really like that. You know, like we believed in a fairy tale. You know what I mean?
It almost mirrors like the deconstruction or evolution in our religious journeys. It's like there's a point where we came to realize like, actually, this idea of this faith is not what I thought it was. And so I have to both rethink where I'm going and also reassess where I've been and trying to make meaning out of what my past experiences were.
Yes, exactly right. And so it's helped me name this video has helped me name a little bit like it is okay to feel the loss of that grief while also being able to recognize that like the world I'm grieving was never really real to begin with.
Sure.
Because even though we were relatively safe here in the imperial core and like you had more opportunity for success, it's like all the stuff that we're upset with Trump for doing in America right now, every Republican and Democratic president for the last several decades have been doing that all around the world.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, it kind of, when it gets to the conversation about, you know, there's a lot of liberals out there, right? Like, you know, Joshua Das, for example, I saw him do a video where he's like, he's a creator here in Chicago. He's like kind of a liberal political consultant, and I like a lot of the stuff that he puts out. When I see his videos, I'm like, oh, he seems like a cool dude or chill dude. But I saw him put out a video like, I don't like leftists. If you're a leftist, don't talk to me.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah, like very much on the vibe of like, you guys are the reason Kamala lost. You didn't think blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what they will always say is something along the lines of, if you think that things would be as bad now as they were if Kamala had gotten in office, you're crazy.
Sure.
We lost abortion, right? We lost, which that would have happened anyways. Like the courts were already teed up, but you know, like she would not be sending in ICE to like destroy people's families, like pointing to real world harm and saying like anybody who did not actively support Kamala Harris is to some degree actively responsible for this. But what we fail to recognize and acknowledge is that you're right. Kamala Harris would not be sending
Absolutely
ICE into Minnesota.
Yeah.
What Kamala Harris would probably be doing is continuing the legacy of every other neoliberal, neocon war hawk in America, which all the Democratic presidents are neocon war hawks too. I don't care what you say.
Yep.
Not you.
No, I got you.
But like what they would be doing is still furthering U.S. imperialism abroad, drone striking children. Like, yeah, Obama didn't send ICE into our communities, right?
Yep.
But he was murdering children. Children being murdered under his command, under his orders.
Children were being separated from their parents in the United States.
Children being separated from their parents.
There was cages under
There was
Obama.
slavery. There was here in the States.
Yes.
But across the world, conditions. Because what they'll say is, yeah, but the conditions of children in cages under Biden wasn't as bad as under Trump. And that is true, 100%.
Sure.
It is worse under Trump in America. But there was way worse than kids in cages all around the world under Republican and Democratic presidents.
Right.
And I like what he said is like, yes, we can grieve the loss of that, but let's imagine something new, not something that's just stable for us here at the expense of everybody else around the world, but something that's stable here and safe.
And that's hard because it requires us imagining something we haven't seen before.
That's right.
And it's easy to imagine going back 10, 15 years to the Obama era and going back to sleep in the delusion that things could be safe and secure for us in the imperial core. But it's like asking me to go back to religious fundamentalism. I can't, right? Like I can't delude myself into thinking something to be true when I know it's not.
Yeah.
So my call for everybody else in the audience is like, if you're imagining there's a world that we can go back to, just understand that what's being exposed now, you can't unsee that. You can't unsee the Epstein class, who spans both Republicans and Democrats. The fact that this information was available for Obama, Biden, and now Trump. Yeah. Right. This is not something
they all had access to this shit, bro.
Exactly. So what we're seeing exposed now is the end of an empire that existed far before Trump. And even the Canadian Prime Minister, I don't know if you listened to his speech at Davos, he was talking about the liberal order and how it's kind of coming to an end. And one of the things he was highlighting is that the Americans were using their power in ways that were less coercive than what Trump is doing. But there was power that was being wielded over Europe. We had these liberal institutions. But even before Trump, when we wanted to ignore NATO, when we wanted to ignore the UN, we would do it. And guess what? We could, because who's going to stop us, right? So we went into Afghanistan, we went into Iraq, we did things around the world, and the UN would say, hey, this is wrong. But it's like, what are they going to tell us? So now Trump is giving the middle finger to these organizations. But what I think his name is Mark Carney, what he was saying is that ultimately this system was set up to begin with, and it was being abused already. So this is just it's again this exposure of things that have already been going on.
And by the way, it made me want to vomit to see Mark Carney trying to claim that point, because he is like the prime example of one of those dudes. You know, he's a world banker. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyways, I think, and then so like just being able to imagine, we've been stripped of our capacity to have a political imagination. Right, about the future. I think one of the things that captured my attention with Slavoj Žižek when I was like 18 years old. Was he was talking about like, you know, we have to be able to imagine a new political reality, a new political future. Like, it's not that you can't go back to the same old exact debate between like the war between neoliberalism and like the certain kind of like, you know, Stalinism has already played out. Right. It doesn't mean like we can't have communism or socialism in some way, but it's like, like we have to have,
the context is different.
The context is different, which is, by the way, you know, what Marx is all about, right? Reading his analysis was based on a certain context, and understanding how things would play out, how they ultimately would unfold. But yeah, I think it's really valuable and valuable insight emotionally for how we process through all this. Yeah,
I guess the question maybe for you that I'm thinking about too is like at a very practical day-to-day level, how are you handling regulating your nervous system? What practice is there? Anything that you're doing to kind of remain sane and stable? And we talked about this in episode 1, and it feels like it's actually much harder. It's only been 3-4 months since then. It feels much harder. It feels much harder now than it did then.
I don't know what the hell I said in episode 1, because right now I'm like, I don't nothing.
Yeah.
Like, just to be honest, Frank, with the audience, like, I have it written down already. Like, on Thursday when I meet with my therapist, like, I need to tell him, like, I am ready to snap like all the time. Like, even with my kids, I'm holding myself, but like I catch myself constantly over the last 2 weeks, more so than usual. And probably part of that is everyone in my house was sick for a week.
That'll do it.
I was taking care of everybody, even though I was sick, because I was the least sick. But with everything that's going on, I'm finding myself like the tension within me start to rise, and like I can feel, and I don't want to start snapping. And so I need to figure out some kind of process.
I'm trying to figure out and I'm bad at this, so I'll say that at the beginning. I want to try to time box and context box my engagement with information. Because like yesterday I was on Twitter reading about the Epstein files and then this AI shit, and I'm like freaking out, like sitting in my apartment trying to work, and I'm like, we're living in an insane timeline. Like the amount of instability that is being thrown our way at the same time is like, it's hard to wrap your mind around this amount of change. And so like, what does it look like to say, okay, we're going to talk about certain things on the podcast, right? But I want to recognize that in order to remain sane, I don't need to know every little thing that happens, like giving my nervous system permission to like disengage
a little bit,
not disengage completely, but like recognize that if I look at, there's a couple magazines I subscribe to, so I get the news from there every week. If I'm nowhere near this, but I'm like asking myself the question, if I only read a magazine once a week, what would change about how I feel, but also like my level of how informed I am? Like what would be different, right? Like would my life be better? Would it be worse? Like knowing less about the minute details of what's going on, kind of getting a high level overview. Is that better? Is that helpful? Like, do I need to know? Because part of what we've acknowledged that the Trump administration is trying to do is flood our nervous system and get us to be frozen in time so we can't react and organize. And I think the people that are leading these organizational efforts, they have to be able to have a level of centeredness in order to engage. Because if you're just frantically reacting to everything you see on social media, how do you have the mental capacity and energy to text your neighbors, to go outside and do what they're doing in Minnesota, which is the true work?
You really can't, bro. And especially with creating content. So one of the things I love about most of my content is it's relevant to everything that's going on in society, but not about everything that's going on in society on its face, right? And more so, I think about making content that helps people learn how to think in these kinds of times. But like recently, like you also don't want to not rise to the moment when big things are happening. And so I have made a little bit more content recently that has to do with like what specifically is going on and engaging with different people that way. And I find that actually elevates my, anxiety a good amount more. And so I'm trying to find the balance there. And then also, maybe like putting like timers on my phone or like limits on the apps, like you know how you can do that?
I have that.
Because right now I've been on Instagram way too much. And the truth is, you probably aren't even getting less if you disengage, because you just seeing the same fucking same content over and over again, which is why I hate doing that. But that's what people do, that because it's in the algorithm, so you get views. Right. Like, I can pour an hour of my day into working really hard on a video, and it might get 50,000, 100,000 views. Or I can just get on and yell about JD Vance, something he just said, which I've done that, and that video, and spend 90 seconds in total on that video, and that video gets 400,000 views. So that's easy for people to do. So then that's just, when you're scrolling, like, ask yourself this question, right? Like, how many times today did you see some variation of somebody talking about the exact same freaking thing? Did you really need to learn about it 5 different times?
Yeah, I saw yesterday Don Lemon got arrested, and I probably spent an hour seeing people on Twitter say that over and over again.
Just say the same shit.
If I read that sentence, that's all I needed to know. And then 6 hours later, he was released. Right? I mean, obviously there's more to the story, but the reality is those are the core facts. Everything else is just commentary that's trying to keep you addicted and attuned to the algorithms. They can make money.
And I want to say, like, for any of you listening, wondering, like, what do I do? How do I stay plugged in? Honestly, bro, I think the answer is getting involved in real world organizations. Like, you have recently got involved with the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. I am trying to get involved actively with I'm actively trying to get involved with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Tonight, for example, they had like a class thing, and I wanted to go, but the kids were sick, or the kids were home, and Natalie was sick again.
I want to tap in. I follow them on Instagram, so there's a couple of events I've seen them, and I want to go to one as well. So hopefully, maybe we can go to one together.
We're laughing because I tried to go to an event that they had the other day where they're preparing for this protest, and I walked in towards the end. I definitely think they thought I was a Fed. Like, I think they thought I was undercover ICE, because I'm just like the most straight, square looking dude.
Careful at this moment.
Because ICE is doing that kind of stuff. They are sending in
like infiltrating signal chats.
Especially protesters and stuff. And I walked in. I think that they were like, "Can we help you?"
Show up on time, I guess, is the lesson, right?
Show up on time,
or just
hit somebody up beforehand, show up more than once. And anyways, but you should get connected, because like, we just had like this national strike, which, by the way, people are like, well, one day that's not going to do anything. You know what it does is it exercises your freaking muscle.
It was better than no kings, I'll tell you that.
It was better than no kings. Like,
it's a strike. That's an escalation.
Here's how I think about it. I took, because of sickness and travel, I missed being in the gym for 2 weeks. And then I found, like, days were going by and I just wasn't getting my ass back in there. So yesterday, what I do, I got my ass back in the gym, even though it was an inconvenient time. And guess what that made me want to do? Get back in again.
Absolutely.
It made it easier. The longer you go without exercising a muscle, it atrophies. That's what we were doing with this national shutdown. We were working out a muscle that has atrophied for the American public.
Absolutely.
Right? And we need to be able to flex that muscle again. But as that consciousness grows, these organizations on the ground, they're doing a lot of that work. Like that, the whole protest, everything they did here in Chicago, that's all PSL mostly. It's like PSL people leading it, PSL people are organizing it. They don't have enough people in that organization to be able to capture the growth that we need to have if we want to build a big movement. There's a coffee shop right around the corner from here. I'm going to go give them, they closed down for the strike, so I want to go give them $20 each.
I did see they closed down.
Yeah, they closed down. So I want to give the employees $20 each. It's not a lot, right? But like, as a community, right? Each according to his ability, from each according to his needs, right? Like, or vice versa, whatever. I have the ability to help them a little bit because they went ahead and made that sacrifice for the movement. And so, but that needs to be something that's organized. And so, I think that's one of the ways I want to try to deal with that.
Yeah, I think anything you can do to take action in the real world is going to lead to both community, which is important, and a feeling of agency. And I think that's the exact opposite of what scrolling. You feel like there's nothing you can do, and there's no agency in that. You're not doing it.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, it strips you of your agency. All you can do is argue with bullshit people talking about nothing. I had somebody the other day comment on my post. They were like, Paul Tillich, he's like the Harvard Theological Seminary guy. I think he was Lutheran.
I don't know.
Something like that. But somebody commented, they were like, Paul Tillich wasn't some liberal shill. He was the Archbishop of Canterbury. Get your facts straight. I was like, okay. That's hilarious. That means like the Archbishop of Canterbury.
You got to work on Google's free.
Yeah. They're mixing up Rowan Williams and Paul Tillich. Anyways, all right. So next up, one of our favorite rappers. We're going to check out a clip of him. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so Vic Mensa, he's been doing a lot of cool videos recently. His little Orange Tree series, where he just kind of talks about what's going on in the world in a specific moment. He actually went to Minnesota and engaged with some of the protesters and activists there. So he kind of we're gonna listen to him kind of reflect on his experience and kind of give his take on what's happening specifically in Minnesota. I think this video he recorded it right before the strike yesterday. So that's just some context. He mentions the strike. So yeah, let's listen to Vic Mensa.
I went to Minneapolis to see the situation on the ground for myself. They tear gassed the homie that brought me down there. They tear gassed us. I watched them testing a silent sonic weapon called the LRAD on protesters that causes permanent hearing loss, makes you vomit, bleed from the nose. You're now under arrest. That shit banned in Germany. I mean, I ain't even gotta say what they did in Germany. You know you evil when you doing shit them niggas wouldn't do. That's some SS Gestapo shit. I should watch out, or I'll get snatched up for saying that. A Christy known wax museum face having ass. On the real, this is just white supremacy short-circuiting at the inevitability of its own demise. America will be a majority-minority nation in the next 20, 30 years. You can't deport your way out of this predicament, buddy. It resembles a phenomenon known as extinction burst, a brief increase in the intensity of a dying behavior, a last-ditch effort at survival. Latinos are 20% of the country. They've increased 250% in the last 40 years. Mexicans are not going to stop having children. They can be living in a one-room house, 10 kids, and they want more. You can't compete with that. And on that note, so much of this nation is Mexico. They're indigenous to this land. I was at the Whipple Federal Building, where ICE is stationed and abducting people. It's built on top of historic Fort Snelling, pivotal site in the genocide against the Lakota people. So if you have any misgivings about ICE as a modern-day representative of slave catchers, an extension of Americans' greatest sins, just look at the places they choose, not Disneyland. Democratic Governor Tim Walz brought in the Minnesota National Guard to try to bait and switch the people, playing good cop, bad cop, giving niggas Dunkin' Donuts. Like we're supposed to believe y'all are on different sides. You just shot a nigga with the LRAD. I watched you. That wasn't ICE. That was Minnesota force. The call is for a nationwide general strike. No work, no school, no shopping. Tomorrow, Friday, January the 30th. Many black people say this is not their fight, because black people have always known fascism in this nation. This is true. And still, Keith Porter. And still, the same corporations that own these ICE detention centers that are raking in billions from them own the prisons where they incarcerate us by the millions. And who benefits from that? The corporations that employ the slave labor of incarcerated black Americans. To read the essay I wrote about my time in Minneapolis, drop a comment. I'll send you the link to it in my new weekly newsletter. Shit ain't a game, man. Strike tomorrow. You gotta hit them in their pocket. It's the only thing they respect. Motherfucker orange so goddamn juicy. Fuck.
Okay, so Vic Mensa starting up a Substack.
Yeah.
Now that was good. A little bit of race essentialism there with the Latinos having babies.
Yeah, that's true. Got pushed back on that a little bit.
But actually, it makes like an interesting point. And he's just making a joke, so I know he's just being silly. But it's kind of interesting. The reason that the Latino population is growing so much and having so many more babies is not because they're Latino. It's because they're oppressed in this country. And when people are poor and oppressed, they tend to have more children, actually. If you wanted to actually, it's funny, if they actually wanted to decrease the growth of the Latino population in the United States, they should give them all full citizenship, make sure they all get great jobs and become very comfortable. Because the reason that white people are having less babies is not because they're white, it's because they are on the higher end of the privilege ladder in the United States of America. And the more privilege you have, the more comfort you have, the less babies you have.
So interesting that that's never brought into the conversation, because it might actually force people to consider, maybe our whole narrative about replacement theory is wrong.
Oh yeah, it's like that happens with every freaking argument they have, right? Like they never address the things that would fix the issue they want to solve. They just do something brutal, like abortion, for example. It's not like, hey, let's fix the economic situations that lead people to having abortions. It's just ban it. But guess what? Abortions have increased under Trump. Abortions have gone up since they got rid of the federal.
But we never have any follow-up. That's the issue with that side of the political aisle. Like they'll claim victory on something because they did a thing, but you don't ever get to ask the question, so you did the thing. What was the impact of that thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Like they went into Venezuela and kidnapped Maduro. His vice president is there. And this is of the same regime. So like, what's the impact now? Like what's different now? Did we get to have a follow-up conversation? You overturned Roe v. Wade. What's happened? Have you actually gotten what you hoped to get? No.
And that's what they're flooding the zone, like Bannon says. So what do you think about his extinction burst?
I don't know. I've heard this a couple of times on TikTok. I think that it's a hopeful way of framing the conversation. Like this is white supremacy, at least in America's its last ditch effort to try to stop the inevitable. And so it almost makes you feel like, all right, we're almost out of this, right? But of course, there's going to be what one of my mentors used to call white lash at the end that happened after Obama with Trump. It's happening again right now as immigration is kind of proliferated in the nation. And so like, it is hopeful because it almost frames it as if, okay, we can just get through this last wave of hate, insanity, aggression, and oppression. We will have on the other side a world that's more equitable. And I think that that's possible. Yeah. But I think the thing that's missing, and I actually don't think Vic Mensa would disagree with what I'm about to say, because he's out there in Minnesota, is that if we don't do anything, that is not inevitable. Like we have to force the conclusion of this white supremacist society in order to have something more equitable. Right. If we just sit back and do nothing and say, well, it's an extinction burst, it's inevitable, we're going to get through this, like, oh, well, Trump's only going to be in office for 4 years. Like this is not actually how you get through a oppressive fascist regime. I was listening to, I think, Timothy Snyder, who wrote on fascism, he was talking to Scott Galloway, and he was saying from his studies, like the positive thing is that, yes, like, this authoritarian regime is not unbeatable. It's not inevitable. They're not that organized. Trump is old. Like they have all these things that are working against them. These people aren't that smart. But the problem is if people just rely on that, you don't get past an authoritarian regime with passivity. You get past it through activism, from organizing, from pushing back. If you don't do anything, you're playing into their hands. Yes. And so that's the only thing that I would say is like, yes, I agree. Extinction burst is probably what's happening, and not just for white supremacy. Honestly, it's the American empire is kind of coming down. China is rising. These things have been mentioned by a plethora of thinkers. Ray Dalio's talked about this as well. Yeah. So I think that's true, but like how we experience the next phase of this transition will very much be dependent on what we do.
And I think that the extinction burst thing is an interesting way to talk about it. I think of it more like we are at a tipping point. And we are teetering on that tipping point. So we could tip over the edge, or you could tip right back. You could tip right back in. Yeah. And there are people pulling on both sides, right? So when I think about like, well, what's the thing that's being extinguished or that might die, that thing that we might go over, I think it's not just like white supremacy or like the American empire, specifically the neoliberal order, right? That order that we talked about with that first video that felt like it was stable, that felt like there was global commerce, that like you could rely predictably on things grew at a certain pace, what Mark Carney really wants there to be. That is dying, and that is dying because it's inevitable, I think, but also it's funny, it's not the left that's trying to bring it to a heel, to bring it to a head, it's the far fascist right. Yes. And so if they do end it, it's not necessarily that it's going to end white supremacy. Yeah. No, white supremacy, and hopefully, I think Vic thinks it's white supremacy that's at the extinction burst. We might be heading into a whole new level of white supremacy, because like what they're trying to do with ICE right now, and this is why this is everyone's issue. And I think the next video, what I'm about to say, is going to be relevant to the next video. Sure. So I'll try not to go too much into it. Sure. The reason why what's happening with ICE is so important, we say vaguely, right? Like first they came for the blank and I was not that, so I stayed quiet. Then they came for the blank and I was not that, so I stayed quiet. And then eventually you work it up, then they came for me. Yeah. Well, why should we believe that that's true and not just, rhetoric that may neatly lay on it in a rhetorical way? When we look at the funding of ICE is now like something like the fourth or fifth, if they were a military, would be like the fourth or fifth most biggest funded military in the world. They are now more heavily funded than the entire Marine Corps. Let me say that again.
That's insane.
ICE now has more funding than the U.S. Marines.
In what world does that make any type of sense?
Does that sound like financial planning for a relatively short-term operation where they go into these cities and they get everybody out, which is like kind of their narrative? We're going to get everybody out. Or does that sound like the establishment of a long-term, permanent secret police force? That's what that sounds like to me.
Obviously. I mean, I just saw a report that they are buying giant warehouses.
They're buying warehouses up all across the country to turn into holding facilities. So what's going to happen to the new police force, the new federal police force of masked agents that have total immunity, according to JD Vance? What's going to happen to them once they've put, all of the undocumented immigrants they can find in cages? They're still going to be more funded than the Marines.
We've already seen the beginnings of it. Political dissidents, people that are filming ICE, they're taking the
already being shot.
They've already
taken to
filming them. They're taking video of people's faces and saying you're now a domestic terrorist.
Right.
So it's obvious what's happening.
It's obvious.
Like, you understand, people, like, this is not a joke.
Right.
This is not rhetoric. These are things that are actually happening. And so it's crazy to me that, again, we have the Democrats in Congress that are like, we just need to make a few concessions, make sure they're trained, take the masks off, all things that I agree with.
Right.
But the fundamental thing that they need to do is abolish the whole thing.
That's right. Yeah.
It needs to be abolished. There's no reason for immigration, which is a civil violation, not a criminal violation, not a violent crime. There's no reason for us to have a military force going into communities, dragging people out. Some who are they're going into Ohio where there's a bunch of Haitian immigrants.
Yeah, they're about to
The Haitian immigrants are here on asylum.
Yeah.
By and large in Ohio. So they're saying, we're going to strip these people of their asylum and we're going to take them and put them in detention centers. Yeah. And I heard Jamel Bowie, he's a neoliberal. I don't know if he's a neoliberal. Like him, but he said that the most obvious thing is that that's ethnic cleansing. Yeah. They went into to the Somali immigrants in Minnesota, not because this is the greatest population of immigrants, but because this is this social media narrative that they're doing fraud is proliferated. Tim Walz is there, and they're targeting this group that by and large ethnic group is not illegal immigrants. Right. These people are not here illegally. Bro, they're doing the same thing in Ohio.
I've hired a lot of Somalis from Minnesota, from Minneapolis, and then worked in those communities a lot. Well, by the way, those are the best people in the world. And there's probably a lot of Muslim ones too, which they're awesome and they're great. And I worked with a lot of Muslim ones. I also worked with a lot of Christian ones.
There you go.
A lot of the Somalis are Christian. But so I just want to push back, and I think if we had the honor and the distinct privilege of ever chatting with Vic Mensa, I think he would probably rock with the analysis that we're given too, because let's say it is an extinction burst. That doesn't mean it's an extinction burst into something good.
Sure.
What do you think the rise of Nazi Germany was? It was an extinction of an old order.
Yes.
And the establishment of a new order, and that was not good.
Yeah.
And that was not good, and was barely resisted, by the way. Yeah. Right, and almost not resisted, right? Like,
which is good news for us, I think, because we are seeing there's the level of what I've understood, the popularity of what Trump is doing at the beginnings of this push is very pales in comparison to what the Nazis got at the beginning.
Yeah, it does just scare me though, the degree to which like their technology
that is the big game.
It has the ability to like really change things. Yeah, like this. I don't know if you've heard, seen, and I don't know the veracity of this stuff, but like. I've seen testimony from people talking about when and it looked like it was in front of Congress too, but like the technology they used to capture Maduro, there's like weapons technology that they have that like we just don't really know that much about.
Yeah.
But they're basically able to go in and like press a button and drop everyone to their knees.
I've seen that.
Like vomiting and like they can't move. They just like immobilizes people. Yeah. When you talk about like the digital control, you know what I mean? Like I got TikTok on my phone still, right? And I'm looking at these new terms and service. I'm like, dude, I'm looking at like the roster of people that work at the new TikTok on their LinkedIn's. Bro, half of these people that are running TikTok now on their LinkedIn says they were former Israeli intelligence. And so I'm like, fuck, like you know, this shit's fucked up. But, you know, so yeah, like we might be in the middle of an extinction burst, but it could be the extinction of an old order. But by the way, that old order was worse than it is here now all around the world already.
Yep.
And so I think that's why like the left, that's why I'm like more vocal, more willing to talk about like, we've got to start cultivating some kind of political imagination to understand this is the world that liberalism brought us. This is the world that neoliberalism brought us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's transition. We'll bring back brother Deante Kyle. We've reacted to a few times. One of my favorite creators right now, and he's going to talk about something that you kind of alluded to in some of your comments. But there's this idea that's been going around on social media that I kind of got caught up in. It's called the Foundational Black Americans, or FBA. And so I made a video talking about how there's also a narrative that's calling people to, quote, black people specifically to stay inside. This is not our fight. It came up, I think, the first time last summer when it was the first or second No Kings protest happened. There was a lot of creators that I saw saying this is not our fight. Honestly, it was more commenters than creators, which we'll get into. Absolutely. So, I made a video saying I don't understand how at this point in time we could say that anybody with melanin could say that this is not our battle. But I was then hit with a lot of people saying, oh, this is, you're a tether, which we'll get into. So there's a lot of conversation around this particular topic that's happening on social media right now. But let's listen to Deante Kyle break it down, and then we'll kind of discuss from there.
The FBA, the Foundational Black American. These niggas ain't involved in nothing outside. They ain't doing shit outside. They on the internet looking for niggas that look just like them to degrade and call tethers all day. I don't see these niggas doing no work against none of these fucking Nazis, none of these fucking Klansmen, nothing. All I see is them niggas calling out other black people all day. That's divisive as fuck. Questioning niggas. Where you from? Where was you born? Nigga gotta show you your freedom papers? Damn, massa. I gotta show you the freedom papers? Who is these niggas on this nag? Bunch of motherfucking Stevens over there trying to check a nigga blood. Wanna check a nigga papers. Sound like ICE. Another 3-letter organization. Healing and perspective, or hate speech and fear mongering. But a lot of us only know how to be in community with abusers. So when niggas start talking about healing, when niggas start talking about organization, we start talking about inclusion, we start talking about mass communal practices. You've never seen that. That's not your experience. That's not where you feel comfortable. Calling niggas names, checking niggas verification. What hood is this? What hood is that? Now, if we was gangbanging and killing each other, it would be a problem. But it's not a problem when a nigga asks where you from, and it's on the internet, and it's on the basis of a culture that we created out of oppression. You don't want to let other niggas participate in your culture because they come over here and degrade him. And you know the business of colonization better than anybody. These niggas is brainwashed. I'm not going back and forth with no nigga that come here from another country in search of the American dream when I know this shit is a nightmare. I'm not going back and forth with no nigga that think he finna get some favor from these white people. I see you niggas that's born in America do the same shit. Michigan head coach, that nigga ain't no tether. Stephen A. Smith ain't a motherfucking tether. How many niggas have we seen tap dance and degrade black people that are from America, born in America? When niggas do it from abroad, I don't say it's an issue with them. I know that they're brainwashed by the system because they went through colonization over there just like we went through it over here. Why the fuck is they leaving Africa? Because Europeans are destabilizing their countries, inserting capitalist dictators, fascist dictators in more democratic socialist societies, toppling governments, and then sending the niggas fleeing, where do they go? To America. And what do? They come through with their religious minds, with their colonized minds, and destable black American revolutionaries because they don't know no better. And it's a bunch of niggas in America that don't know no better because they only are used to being in community with abusers. We have been oppressed in this country for 400 years. Some of us don't know how it feels not to be oppressed. Some of you ain't comfortable if you're not oppressed. You've never created an idea of what freedom looks like for you. Black Americans, and I advocate for this, nigga, me and Big Cat are the blackest of black Americans. We are true to the black American experience. We are proud. We also understand that our story doesn't start here nor end here. The Panthers were Pan-Africanists. Marcus Garvey was a Pan-Africanist. All the leaders and things that came before you that gave you the blueprint to feel revolutionary were also thinking about global movements, mass communal practices instead of micro movements.
All right, so let me break this down for you.
Man, so the thing about this clip specifically from Deante Kyle, first of all, he talks fast in general, but
Yeah.
the way it was edited could be a bit confusing because he talks from his perspective, and he also talks from the perspective that he's critiquing.
Right.
And it's edited in such a way that if you're not paying attention, you may think he's saying something that he's not. Especially if you're not familiar.
I'm gonna play the role. I know a little bit more about this, but I'm gonna play the role of asking you some questions.
Sure.
Because there might be a lot of listeners, not just because they're white, but because it's kind of like a niche thing.
Yeah,
like
I didn't even know about it from.
If you're not big into content, then you just don't. You probably never heard of FBA. What is FBA? But one thing I want to say is I love how much Deante Kyle is rocking with Urugu. Like he got Sister Marimba Ani right up on the desk for a long time. It's been there for a long time. He hasn't rearranged it or moved anything else out of the way.
Foundational book for him.
Foundational. So let's talk about foundational.
Sure. So I'm not the expert on FBA, and nor do I want to be, because to me it's bullshit. But so FBA, from what I've understood, is a term called Foundational Black Americans. There's probably some lore that you can find on the internet. To me, it's a conspiratorial reading of history that these people have. But they're the main thing that you'll see on the internet if you engage with people that are FBA or claim to be FBA is that they believe that there is a very distinct identity that is distinguishable from other Black people. So they believe that if you're Black American, your parents on both sides were born and raised here, and you trace your lineage back to slavery, then you are a foundational Black American who, quote unquote, built this nation, which is true. Black people did build this country. But the problem that I've run into, and that Deante Kyle is starting to call out, is that whenever a conversation comes up on TikTok, not whenever, but I've started to see more and more since the election of Kamala Harris. And I want to say this too, like, there's people who are libs, and you can call them blue MAGA. I don't know if you've heard the term blue MAGA. I don't want to conflate these people, the FBA and the blue MAGA people, even though I don't like either of them, but they do some of the same things. So when the first No Kings protest happened, a lot of people said, I voted for Kamala Harris. I'm not doing anything. I'm resting. I'm staying inside. FBA people said the same thing. Black people, this is not our fight. This is not our battle. They've been saying that since the ICE raids were here in Chicago. So when I made a video in response to what I saw on TikTok, there was a couple Black creators that I follow that I engage with their content a lot. They've got a lot of followers. I think specifically there's a couple of them that are in DC. They were talking and very vocally speaking on the fact that both when the National Guard and ICE was in DC, and even now, that this pushback and this movement against ICE is something that should concern Black people, right? So in their comment section, there are people saying, this is not our fight. This is not our battle. I'm staying inside. And it was like a flood of comments. Like it was like, this doesn't seem organic to me. So, but it didn't stop there. Then I started to see creators that I've never seen before making videos attacking these creators, saying that you're only caring about this is after Renee Good and Alex Preddy. This is pretty recently. They're saying that these particular Black creators only care because white people have been killed, and they didn't care allegedly when Black people were killed. And there's another Afeni. I don't know if you know Afeni. She was also caught up in this in DC. She's one of the creators that I'm talking about. People are attacking them for caring about what's going on about ICE, slandering them, saying that they didn't care about Black people being killed by the police.
Bro, that's Fed shit.
It's Fed shit. Like this is not this conversation makes no sense. One, because the people that they're mentioning have receipts. Like they were like, I was out here with BLM for 10 years. I've been organizing in my community, especially Afeni. Like I'm out here protecting Black people in DC. Black people were being harassed by the National Guard in DC. And so there's this proliferation of people saying, oh, you're alleging that these people aren't Black, which part of being Black in America is having your Blackness questioned. So that's not necessarily something that's new, but the way it's being done is a very, it's racist, it's xenophobic, because like for instance, myself, I made a video and I said FBA is CIA, because when I was saying this is Fed shit, like there's no, this is not a productive conversation in the present moment, right? If I was the CIA sitting in my on my computer and I said, how can I prevent a mass movement from coalescing around the Black community? I think I would just attack Black creators that are calling people to engage. Call them a derogatory name, tether, right? Which basically means you're tethering on to the oppressive experience of Black people, and you're co-opting it to your own advantage.
So a tether would be like let's say somebody moves here from Nigeria or a Somali in Minnesota,
exactly,
they'd be like, you're not really a foundational Black American. You're not a Black American. You're a tether.
You're a tether. So we don't have to care about. We shouldn't care about you.
That's racist.
This is why we're not going outside, right?
Yeah.
This is the exact opposite of Pan-Africanism, which is what I mean. Partly because of my heritage,
and
right?
Like he talked about, like the Panthers were Pan-African.
Exactly.
All the great, Black liberation movements in America have been.
By the end of their lives, Martin and Malcolm started to kind of move in that direction as well. So it's obvious to me that this is a very counterproductive conversation, and it's playing into the hands of the Trump administration, which is seeking to isolate Black immigrant communities so that they can be ethnically cleansed, like we just mentioned, and taken out. And so Black people say, oh, this ain't our fight, this ain't our battle, we're staying home. I genuinely don't believe that that's the majority of us that are saying that, or that are having that sentiment. But there is, from my perspective, and I got this from FD Signifier, following him over the past few years, like, there is a sense in which the Black community has been de-radicalized on purpose. And we've mentioned that in the past. And so I think this is another example of that. But I don't think that this FBA, I think this is basically a Black cult. I don't think this is something that should be taken that seriously. But it's something that could spread more and more as we're seeing the rise of xenophobia, both in the white community. And, there's immigrants that are a part of ICE, right? So this is not something that the xenophobia is not something that's just in white communities.
It should have clued us in. We should have been clued in pretty quickly when, not just with Black revolutionaries, but when revolutionaries in America went from being people that were shot and killed by the government to people that were now on Forbes 30 under 30. Like, that should have clued us in, like, oh, they have intentionally done something to make sure that there's only, when was the last time we had a revolutionary leader in America shot and killed?
40, 50 years, more than that. 60s, 70s.
Well, Trump, Which, by the way, where is his boo-boo? They constantly say this man got shot. He's walking around. He got
piece
shot
of tape
in the
on
head.
his ear, and then it was
Where
over.
is this man's boo-boo?
He's Teflon Don. That's what they say.
Anyways, so FBA, if you see that shit rocking
Ignore
around,
it. It's
ignore
bullshit.
that shit.
Don't take it seriously. I did see some white creators making videos, stitching my videos. Cut that out. Don't do that. Like, trying to engage in the conversation. This is not your conversation. I'm sorry. Like, some conversations, like, obviously we're having it and we're engaging in it. But if I'm a white creator, which I'm not, and I see Black people talking about FBA and not our fight, this is obviously a conversation that you can watch and observe, but you shouldn't really be taking part in or making videos about.
And a conversation that in like a real world setting you might be invited into by certain people, but you should not invite yourself in.
Exactly.
It's kind of like how I felt listening to what's it called? To Pimp a Butterfly when it came out. I was like, man, I love this album, and I think I actually wrote a blog about it. But I was like, listening to this album feels like going over to my friend's house and hearing the family fighting inside. And I know I should mind my own fucking business.
See, but that's the sort of disposition that we need more of, right? Like, beyond like the xenophobic white people, there's a lot of overly zealous, especially after 2020, white folks that want to get into conversations, and they read a couple books. They probably read Robin DiAngelo or Ibram Kendi, and they think they understand everything there is to understand about race.
Unread it. Read. If you read Robin DiAngelo and Ibram Kendi, put them away. Don't read them anymore, and instead go read Barbara and Karen Fields. Go read Adolph Reed Jr. All right, so we got one last video, and I think you're gonna like this one. You have not seen this yet.
I've not seen it.
Life is like a box of chocolate, unless the chocolate is being oppressed, and then the oppressor steals the recipe of the chocolate and goes out to try to sell the chocolate to other oppressors, claiming that it's his own. And then the chocolate outside of the box is now trying to get back into the box. And what are you left with? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And then what are we left with? Cookie Crisp and the wolf trying to steal back his chocolate that was once his. See, it's common sense. And common sense is a flower that doesn't grow in everyone's garden. See, because I'd rather have common sense and no knowledge than knowledge and no common sense. And what's the common denominator of common sense? Common. And I'm from Chicago. And you know who else is from Chicago? Common.
All right, so
Bro,
that ate me,
chill.
bro. I was dying watching that, and I immediately went to the comments like, please tell me Vic,
he
if Vic
comment?
was in here, yeah, like cracking up. The comments are full of people that I like, but everyone took it in good. In his caption too, he was like, no, I really do rock with what Vic meant to say.
Yo,
That was perfect.
that is funny, man.
That was so
That's
good.
funny.
Anyway, all right, bro. I think that kind of that's it for right now. So, you got anything else?
I don't think so. There's so many things that we could talk about, but I'm sure by the time we get to next week, there'll be plenty more to discuss and threads to pull on. So I'm good.
All right, cool. All right, bro.
Cool.
Peace.
All right, guys, if you are still here, that means you're one of the real ones. We appreciate you watching to the end. We just want to say thank you again for watching Ask the Next Question. I think we're on episode 10. This is 10 or 11. I'm losing track. But anyways, we appreciate you watching. We just want to let you know that if you're rocking with us, there's a few ways you can engage with us. Be sure to like the video. Be sure to leave a comment. Let us know what you enjoyed, maybe what you didn't like, what you want us to talk about in the future. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Please subscribe. That helps us out so much. Turn on notifications so you can get notified whenever we drop our next video. We have a Patreon community that we're just getting started, so please feel free to check out the link on our podcast page. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok. Send us a DM. Let us know that you're rocking with the podcast. We really appreciate you guys for supporting us and rocking with us thus far. And we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.